Fights within Shonen can be one of the most revisited moments within your favourite series. This is often due to the setup, conflict and outcome mashing together to create a perfect package that never gets old. For me, and for many others, this was Naruto vs Sasuke. And while I'm sure there's many who just purely enjoy the spectacle of the fight, which is completely fine, I think it's very important to dive deeper into why this conflict worked so well and why it is recognised as one of the best fights in Shonen. So by saying this, we can't cut straight into analysing the fight in the final valley. We need to go back to where the seeds were planted that led to this moment. The hospital scene is where we really get to see both characters start to let out negative character traits towards each other. For Sasuke, it's him feeling like he hasn't made any progress towards being stronger, and this matters a lot considering his whole life's purpose has been to get the strength needed to kill his older brother. Sasuke has been losing numerous fights over and over, with Naruto being the one to take over and finish those fights Sasuke never could. For Sasuke, it's crazy to him to see Naruto not being so insignificant anymore, and while Sasuke has in the past not taken offense to these actions but instead used them as a way to motivate him, such as Naruto taking on Orochimaru head on, followed by calling Sasuke out for being so pathetic, leading to Sasuke saying to Naruto he's one of the people he wants to fight the most, showing that he's actually acknowledged him in a positive way. But now, things had changed. Sasuke had now encountered his brother and couldn't even put a scratch on him. It wasn't even close to being called a fight, it was a complete beatdown. To make matters even more frustrating for Sasuke, once again Naruto is seen as the main attraction. And while Naruto is put into the limelight for not the most positive reason this time, it didn't matter to Sasuke. He wasn't the main interest, to which Itachi makes clear to him. This encounter was not only a blow to Sasuke's years upon years of relentless training, but it was a blow towards his confidence, and the only way he sought out to regain that confidence was by proving his strength against Naruto, making this fight be the confirmation he needed that he wasn't weak. Meanwhile for Naruto, his negative character trait is a lot more simpler, yet it plays a huge part into why he fails to connect to Sasuke at the final valley later on. This was his resentment towards Sasuke's attitude. And yes, while the way Sasuke behaves during this moment is justified for Naruto to put him in his place, Naruto failed to do the one thing he learned from his previous opponents, and that was understanding the situation. While Sasuke doesn't properly answer Naruto when he asks what's wrong with him, Naruto instead almost entertains the situation and lets it continue, talking back to Sasuke even more later on the rooftop. Naruto was there to see Sasuke's encounter with his brother, yet in this moment he doesn't even think about that possibly being the reason for why his friend is acting so aggressive. Naruto acting upon his own selfish reasoning for wanting to fight Sasuke. And like I said, Naruto wanting to put Sasuke's ego in his place is somewhat justified, but the reason why this can be seen as somewhat of a negative trait is because of how forceful Naruto is being to prove himself that he's right and Sasuke is wrong, failing to understand why Sasuke has suddenly acted this way. Yes, it's fine to say you're stronger than someone and you're going to put them in their place if they're an enemy, but this was one of Naruto's closest friends, his rival, and so the way Naruto behaves shows he chose the wrong way to handle the situation, wanting it to come to a fight as he clearly states, "The timing couldn't be better, I've been wanting to fight you myself," when in fact the reality is the timing couldn't be worse. As the two leave the room and make their way to the rooftop, the backhand talking only continues, as it becomes a match of almost childlike insults. But what's probably the most noteworthy part of this scene, which truly displays how far Sasuke is letting his pettiness take control of him, is when Naruto asks Sasuke to put his headband on. Sasuke in this moment has only one thing on his mind, and that's fighting Naruto, leading him to respond, "You won't be able to put a scratch on my forehead." In a way, this comment makes it feel like he's trying to replicate his brother's strength in this situation, since Sasuke was unable to cause any damage towards Itachi. So if anything, saying this line made Sasuke feel like he was at that untouchable level to where not even a scratch would be laid upon his skin, just like his brother. Of course, the way Sasuke is responding is wrong, and a part of Naruto's more positive traits return, showing that he isn't as lost as Sasuke, replying how it's to show they're fighting as equals. This only aggravates Sasuke more, however, since one of the reasons why he wants to have this fight with Naruto is because of how he feels threatened by Naruto being stronger / better than him. Sasuke retaliating with, "Why are you acting high and mighty? You don't think we're equals, do you?" Clearly showing how far off the mark Sasuke is and how lost he is becoming. This leads into the main fight, and while there's not anything too deep to digest here, everything still works. I love how the anime doesn't include any music for the first minute of the fight, as it gives a sense of how serious and intense the moment has become, really creating the perfect atmosphere. Most of the fight is purely hand-to-hand combat as well, which makes the blows and kicks feel a lot more up close and personal with greater impact. It also feels a lot more rough and dirty, which is why I believe a lot of people have always loved hand-to-hand combat in Naruto a lot more than the flashy large jutsus that become more evident in the final stretch of the series. However, jutsus have been a core factor of Naruto, and the way they're implemented into this fight is perfect. Both characters use the very first proper techniques they learn in the series. For Naruto, it was the Shadow Clone, and for Sasuke, it was the Fireball. Then having the fight wrap up with the very latest jutsus they had learned. For Naruto, it was the Rasengan, and for Sasuke, it was the Chidori. I've mentioned this in my previous video, but both of them using these S-class jutsus show how lost they've become in proving their strength against the other. Seeing this moment puts the nail in the coffin of how serious one another is being, yet it also creates a sense of excitement as you wonder what technique is truly superior. Throughout the series, the Rasengan and Chidori have become one of the most memorable jutsu Naruto and Sasuke know, and so even though both characters have never been put into a situation like this where they get the chance to unleash their strongest power against one another, the seeds for this anticipation were still being planted as the story progressed. Both jutsus were the strongest, hardest and longest to learn, were one-handed techniques, and of course the obvious, both of these characters who learned these powers were rivals. If anything, it was inevitable that this moment would eventually take place. And as I said before, it's an exciting moment to finally see come to reality at last, but saying that also makes it seem like us as the audience are as lost in the same mindset as both Naruto and Sasuke are, wanting to see who truly is stronger. However, this kind of doesn't get answered thanks to Kakashi stepping in, the keyword here being kind of. As both Naruto and Sasuke get flung away by Kakashi, the jutsus crash into the water tanks in front of them, the tanks being used as a way to gauge their strength according to Sasuke, smiling once he sees a small amount of water leaking from the tank Naruto hit, as it's nothing compared to his sizable blow. At least, that's what not only Sasuke but the audience believes, until...
Damn it! Naruto, how far have you...
Sasuke was wrong once again. Seeing the absolute absurd amount of damage the Rasengan dealt, it was just another blow to Sasuke's ego and what he believed, further pushing the agenda of how lost Sasuke has become. This part of the story is the lowest each character has felt with one another, both becoming desperate to prove the other wrong as shown with the final techniques they used. And as mentioned before, it's reinstated how truly serious the moment is, the audience being made aware by how these techniques could have ended one another's life. Sasuke understands now that he needs more power, and fast. He feels like he's constantly standing still while others around him continue to grow stronger at a faster rate, especially Naruto. But lucky for him, he found what he needed to gain that strength, and that was through abandoning the village to join Orochimaru. Towards the end of the arc is where we get to see the main fight, and while I did spend a large portion talking about the pre-fight that came before it, it felt like it was necessary to explain the thoughts and emotions both rivals were going through at the start, which eventually led them to this point in the story. And as stated at the start, sure, seeing two people have an awesome fight is cool and all, but it's important to factor in how much more investment you may get in the fight if it's been set up around a clash of character beliefs, affecting a friendship and rivalry in a negative direction, creating an anticipated clash that brings to the table an even bigger conflict to go right alongside the fight itself. And with that being said, we need to remember how Naruto got to where he's standing right now, and that's through his comrades. Naruto wouldn't have made it to Sasuke without the numerous sacrifices his friends had made for him to buy time, all of them willing to put their life on the line to bring Sasuke back. They considered him a family member of the village, Naruto being the one to understand this feeling the most, which gets expressed later during the fight. The emotions Naruto must be feeling right now would be at an all-time high, having spent the entire day catching up to Sasuke while being unsure if any of his comrades have even survived the battles. And now, to top things off, Sasuke says he's made the choice purely on his own accord, and that it's none of his business to interfere. This becomes the tip of the iceberg for Naruto, as you wouldn't even be able to comprehend the feelings that are running through him right now. This then leads to pure irritation on Naruto's end, not looking to pursue just a conversation anymore, but violence. I also really love how the statues symbolize how truly far out of reach Sasuke has become to Naruto, yet due to Naruto's clear frustration, he chooses to leap over, basically forcing himself over to Sasuke's side. Yet due to Naruto not agreeing with his rival's actions, it only creates a deeper pit within Naruto of how far Sasuke truly is. This is where Naruto continues to repeat his actions from the hospital, wanting to prove he's right through force and force alone, saying, "I'll drag you back to the village." Sasuke even calls Naruto out on his behaviour, saying how he's been waiting for this moment too, creating a brief snapback to reality for him as he admits he never wanted that kind of fight, and even now he still doesn't. But of course for Sasuke, he doesn't care. While I have been talking a lot about Naruto's feelings throughout the first section of the encounter, it's because of how complicated the situation has ended up for Naruto. But for Sasuke, it was always simple. Power. It was all he needed, and he made that choice voluntarily. Sasuke had already forsaken what he believed was slowing him down. He had already gone so far, so at this point, what reason does Sasuke have to care for Naruto's feelings? It wasn't about how Naruto felt, it was about how he felt, to which Sasuke, as previously mentioned, states had nothing to do with Naruto. It was his own path, not anyone else's. The conflicting emotions of each character are here to guide us into the perfect fight. For Naruto, it was forcing Sasuke back to the village, and for Sasuke, it was forcing Naruto to leave him alone as the path he chose was solitude. The stage is set, and so the fight begins. Kishimoto has done a really great job building up these two characters to fight once more, but this time it was a proper battle with no holds back, meaning it had to be more impressive than the previous hospital conflict. And while the fight is still really great to read in a manga, the anime clearly takes the cake in this section, adding more scenes to flesh out the fight and just overall make it look beautiful. There's taijutsu, equipment being used, clever use of jutsus, and of course the payoff of the Rasengan and Chidori clash. For the first section of this fight, it really feels like Naruto is just fighting a hopeless battle that he knows himself he's going to lose. Sasuke getting the advantage in almost every situation since Naruto doesn't want this fight to happen, being even more painful to him as he could relate to how alone Sasuke was, as it's become more than just a fight to bring back a friend, but now a fight to bring back someone who he felt was part of his family. Naruto doesn't want to be alone again. Yet Sasuke does. Every punch Naruto takes doesn't just damage his body, but it damages the friendship he thought he had with Sasuke, leading him more and more to a new breaking point until he's had enough, allowing the fox spirit within him to give him the strength he needs to force Sasuke back, or in Naruto's own words, to break all his bones and drag him back to the village. This moment is not only really just cool in general to see, but it's also the first time Sasuke is learning about the hidden ability Naruto has, overwhelming him so much as all he can say is, "What are you?" Naruto simply replying, "I'm your friend," just further emphasizes how sad of a battle this is for Naruto, as he continues to say how he just never wanted such a fight to happen, but it was too late now. The next portion of this fight is where things really get intense, and it's amazing. This episode of Naruto was what inspired me to pursue art and animation for a living, and it's a fight I've never gotten bored of rewatching. This is mainly due to the effort of Norio Matsumoto, sorry if I butchered the name, as the animation for this episode clearly looks much different than the previous episodes in the series. There's less detail and more flat colours, but it's in favour of much quicker and smoother animation, which I just love, and I think it works really well considering this is a whole new battle that Naruto has brought to the table. Matsumoto really just goes all out, pushing the limits of the potential of animation through some really great showcases of exaggeration, such as Sasuke's eyes losing their original shape the moment Naruto lands his fist into his stomach, like the air's been punched out of him, or the scrunched up face Sasuke gets when taking a heavy blow to the face. Characters do not always need to be on model, especially during fights, and I've seen people criticize this for being lazy and the animators just being bad artists, which is just completely wrong and shows a lack of understanding to the principles of animation, but this can be saved for another time since it's an entirely new topic altogether. In the fight, Sasuke ends up getting completely overwhelmed by this new strength Naruto has conjured up, only getting him more mentally frustrated, especially with how Naruto continues to repeat the phrases such as "I won't let you go," "wake up," or "going back to the village," leading to a really great emotional outburst from Sasuke.
Just shut up for once. What the heck do you know about it? It's not like you ever had a family in the first place. You were on your own right from the beginning! What makes you think you know anything about it, huh? I'm suffering now because I had those ties. How on earth could you possibly understand what it feels like to lose all that?
While having a non-stop fight sequence is great, having character moments like this to voice their frustration really just makes the fight better in my opinion. Sasuke is completely warranted to feel this way. Naruto still just can't understand Sasuke, to which even he admits. And while Naruto does explain how it felt like Sasuke was a family member to him, it's all simply a cry on deaf ears. And once again, the fight upgrades itself, Sasuke's Sharingan awakening even further in order to fight on the same playing field as Naruto. This part of the fight is one of my favourite moments, seeing such great choreography as it just shows why watching taijutsu fights are so satisfying. It's also really cool seeing all of the creative ways Naruto uses his shadow clones, such as using them like missiles to latch in onto one another to create a massive chain. And once things settle down for a brief moment, Sasuke's frustration with Naruto becomes even more expressed.
It's too late, Naruto. It's too late now! Naruto!
The silence of any music whatsoever really adds to how frozen in the moment everything is, bringing everything back to reality and giving you that chance to digest what it's all led up to, as it's really just a somber fight hidden behind a rush of excitement from the conflict taking place. However, the battle just continues to escalate, this fight being the first time we see the Nine-Tails cloak take over Naruto's body, giving a glimpse into only a small percentage of power the fox spirit truly possesses. The anime really emphasizes this with just how chaotic Naruto's moveset ends up becoming. And while it does become a straight up beatdown once again, Sasuke advances his strength to new heights, allowing the curse mark to take control of him to become a beast himself. This constant back and forth between each character's strength evolving shows just how important they were to each other in regards to becoming stronger, that basically being one of the core elements of a rivalry. Yet, all things must come to an end, just like this fight. Both Naruto and Sasuke preparing their strongest technique to end it all. This chapter shares a lot in common with one of the chapters previously at the start of the fight, Kishimoto paneling every detail as it becomes such a surreal moment to slowly watch. I've already talked about Kishimoto's fantastic paneling techniques used for the start of this fight in my previous video, so I won't explain it too much. It's just a really neat moment seeing the clear comparison from the normal selves to now the truly monstrous transformations. The first clash is so gorgeous to watch, both from the anime and in the manga, and while realistically speaking this should be a clash Naruto wins, the blow to the gut he receives from Sasuke is enough to finalize things on Sasuke's end, while all Naruto does is scratch Sasuke's headband. Naruto could have landed a similar return punch to Sasuke, but instead wanted to prove Sasuke's words wrong about not being able to land a single scratch on his forehead, and with that the fight ends. Sasuke is the victor, Naruto couldn't win. He may have had the strength, but he didn't have the understanding. It was always going to be impossible for Naruto to connect with Sasuke, as it was just a lost cause, emphasized by having the sky be completely covered up by grey moody clouds, only small rays of light being able to cast itself through, managing to hang in there until it slowly disappears. The last ray of hope being Naruto, while the darkness that blocks that light from coming through is Sasuke. His headband that shows the home he came from slowly falling off, landing next to Naruto where his home / family used to be. Probably the best final farewell to this fight, however, is when Sasuke receives the after pain from using the curse mark, making him collapse to the floor in pain as he's almost forced to look at Naruto, representing how his hunger for power has caused the most pain towards his comrades. This fight is memorable for numerous reasons. It's set up perfectly, it delivered a spectacular fight filled with emotions, and it doesn't have a happy outcome. And while the finale isn't seen as a positive for the world of Naruto, it was realistic with how it wrapped up. Sasuke was confident in his beliefs while Naruto tried to force him into a reality he didn't want. And while he had the chance to win the physical fight, he sacrificed that with the scratch on the headband in an attempt to prove Sasuke's own words were wrong. But it just wasn't enough. I feel like as a reader or watcher, you would have expected Naruto to win. He's the main character after all, and having a second main character Sasuke wanting to do something this dark and forsake everyone felt kind of dreadful, especially if he got his way. Yet that's exactly what happened. The fight not ending with joy or smiles, just a somber farewell, which adds to why it's probably so memorable for everyone, as it ends on a completely different tone compared to the previous arcs of the story. And so this is why I think the Naruto vs Sasuke fight is so iconic. This wraps up my thoughts on the fight, and I guess the rivalry of Naruto and Sasuke. I did mention before that I made a video previously that talks a bit more about this fight in terms of anticipation. Yeah, I just didn't want to repeat information again. So if you are interested, please do go check out my previous video, as I'll link it below. And just to clarify, these are my thoughts and opinions on why I believe the fight is still held up to such a high standard within the anime and manga community. And so I may have missed out on a reason that you believe is why the fight is so memorable, and if that's the case, feel free to comment below on what that is and I'll check it out. And if you enjoy videos like these, I have more to come, so please subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed it. It only takes one click for each and it's free, plus it lets me know you enjoy this kind of content. And with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you had a great day and enjoyed the video. Bless.